I'm just saying I didn't do it on purpose. It just was who I am.
And you've been true.
And I've been true to that.
Hey, welcome to Walk With Me by Leading Second, hosted by Brandon and Lindsay Stewart. Each one of us needs others to walk alongside of us in life, in leadership, and in ministry. Story by story, step by step. In this episode, we talk with Pastor Brandon and Lindsay about being all in and building a kingdom-first culture for your family and team. Let's take a walk.
Well, Leading Second, welcome back to Walk With Me. This is our mentoring experiment here.
Yeah, well, I think the experiment's done. It's a mentoring podcast.
It's a mentoring podcast for all of us to lead from the middle. If you lead on your church team and you're not the pastor and you have it in your heart to hold up your pastor's arms and go the distance in ministry and navigate the challenges and the tensions of ministry, welcome. This is the space where we want to walk with you. That's right. We want to walk with you. We are out for a walk physically.
Yep.
And I hope that maybe you'll walk with us sometime when you're listening to this. But more importantly, we want to walk with you in ministry through the challenges. And this morning we're in Austin.
Yeah.
And
a beautiful 90-degree morning.
That's right. We're down by I thought it was a river, but someone called it a lake. I think it's like a dammed off river that's a lake.
It's a beautiful walk along the water.
Yes, downtown Austin. One of my favorite places to walk and pray. I've spent many a weekend morning down here being in town and such. And we're walking this morning. We had a great mastery session yesterday here in Austin with churches from across the Austin and San Antonio region. We're here, and we're thankful to have had that space. I hope you'll join us this fall, if you're listening to this fall, in one of our mastery session events. But hey, we are, first of all, we're going to talk today about the kingdom commitment. I'm so excited to talk with you about that. This is actually based a little bit on a question that came up yesterday at the event that we want to unpack with you for a few minutes. Before we do that, though, we just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge and thank God for the life of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
And we were flying down here on Wednesday when the news of his assassination hit the news. And like you, we've been so deeply moved and impacted by the events of the last few days. And I just wanted to acknowledge, we thank God for his life. Mm-hmm. And Lindsay and I have spent a lot of time reflecting over the last couple of days. And we're so thankful that he was committed to doing politics right. As a couple, I mean, we have friends and family that fall all over the political spectrum. And I'm just going to say it, we see so many get it wrong in how we have the conversations. We're so thankful that he was willing to sit down with anyone and have a conversation. He just did it right. And we did not know him, but we often were very impacted by his words and his approach. And then I think what we've come to love is that he was just a Christian first before he was a politician.
Yeah, he pointed people to Jesus first and foremost and was very open about that. And that's something that I appreciated when I would watch him, is that was the basis from what he taught from, and what he always pointed back to was Jesus. And I respected that a lot. And I definitely will miss his specific voice in that.
I mean, I think it's fair to say, and I'm seeing this consensus pop up now that we've had a couple days to process it, I think it's fair to say that we've seen a martyr spill blood on American soil.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we're not familiar with in our modern experience, and very interesting having to process that and
definitely
the implications of that. So we're thanking God for him today. And I think Josh Howerton said it best. I'm going to just paraphrase the comment, but he said it best when he said every once in a while, a Christian needs to go take a walk. and ask yourself, am I willing to die for this? And basically make sure you arrive at the place where you would say yes.
Yeah, I loved when he said that, you need to go for a long walk and decide, like, am I ready to die for this? And I think that's a question that every Christian needs to come to terms with. And it feels extreme, but apparently it's not.
Well, it's not historically.
Yeah.
And then even what we're going to talk about today, the vast majority of us will never physically give our lives for the gospel.
Right.
In
death.
In death.
But we may give our lives, though.
But we may give our lives.
Yeah, we are going to give our lives.
So I have an interesting comment. I've been heavy in the book revisions process for my book that's coming out early in the new year, Lead It Like You Own It. And I used the phrase in somewhere, maybe the introduction or the first section, about something about like dying to self, or I used the term laying down your life. That's what it was. I used the term laying down your life. And my editor flagged it. And he said, doesn't that mean unto death? Like, are you using the right phrase there? Because doesn't that typically mean unto death? And I had to kind of work with him and challenge him a little bit on that, saying, yes, that's very true. But the vast majority of people, it's true in the way we lay down our preferences.
Right.
In the way that we lay down our bias.
Yep.
And the way that we lay down, so the vast majority of us, our experience is more the laying down proverbial or of our lives, or our perspective, et cetera. And I think the phrase stayed in the book. I'm going to make sure it does, because I think it's the right phrase.
It better.
But it's a challenging concept. It's a challenging concept when you think that, okay, I may not spill my blood like a martyr, but maybe the question for all of us is, am I willing to live every day laying down my life, for the kingdom of God? So that's actually what we're going to talk about today.
Yep.
Is we're going to talk about the kingdom commitment. And as we jump into it, I'll just say, we need to define, first of all, what we're saying.
Tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah, when we say...
What does that term mean?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds.
So...
Are you part of a leadership team, carrying the vision, building the culture, and doing your best to get it right for your pastor? Then join us for Leading Second Mastery Sessions, a brand new experience created just for second chair leaders like you. These interactive whiteboard sessions are designed to help your team get clear on what alignment really looks like in your church and how to build it. You'll gain practical tools, connect with other leaders running in the same lane, and be refreshed in the presence of God. This fall, we're coming to Austin, Kansas City, Belleville, Los Angeles, Venice, and Oklahoma City. They're already underway, so don't just be inspired, walk away aligned. Gather your team and register today at leadingsecond.com.
Many of you would know I love the book Predictable Success by Les McKeown, and we actually use the Predictable Success coaching materials underneath a lot of our Leading Second Build coaching. Les McKeown wrote a statement that was considered by leading publications to be one of the most important phrases in all of business. He called it the enterprise commitment. And I actually took it and changed a word or two ever so slightly, not to change the meaning, because I know you're not supposed to touch a phrase like that, but not to change the meaning, but to call it, rather than the enterprise commitment, call it the kingdom commitment. And so same thing, but just weaving the word church in there a little bit. And
well, it helps it to put it in our context.
Our context, yes. So the kingdom commitment, as we use it in Leading Second, goes like this. When working on our church team, I will place the interests of the church and team ahead of my own. I'll say it one more time. When working on our church team, I will place the interests of the church and team ahead of my own. That is considered to be the pillar, the first pillar of a healthy, effective team in business, in ministry. In other words, he makes the argument, and I agree with it, it is impossible to have an effective team with everyone doing the opposite, approaching things from their motives, their bias, their perspective, themselves first. So I thought it was really interesting that Les used that in business, because if you go and read our Leading Second Creed, that kind of a comment is all over the Leading Second Creed.
Right.
About laying down our lives and leading, essentially leading second, and even using our influence for the cause of Christ. So that was one of the statements where I really found myself at home in the Predictable Success materials, was realizing it's actually built on the same premise.
Yep.
It's built on the same premise that the team has to come first and the mission has to come first before personal preference. So we just want to talk about that today. And I think
that's really great in like a book and in a teaching and on a piece of paper, but when you're trying to decide when you have family time,
it's gonna get us right in there.
how do you reconcile that?
So that's where we kind of wanted to start with, is on its face, I think the statement seems reasonable. If you were to read it, I think the vast majority of you would say, yeah, that's a good statement.
Well, and we're not talking about a team that just exists. We're
Right.
talking about thriving, effective, world-changing,
Yep.
like all the things that I would think if you're doing this right, you want to be.
Yep. And so the statement seems reasonable. It seems normal. It seems, especially if you've been around church. Maybe I'm just showing my bias, not to play on that. I've grown up, I guess, around this, is what I'm trying to say. At Champion Center, at my church where I grew up, this was just taught to us and embedded in us. So maybe I take it a little for granted that it's everywhere. But I feel like on its face, it sounds reasonable. I feel like, secondly, that was much harder lived, to your point.
Yeah.
That the outworking of it is where the tensions come.
Yep.
And where the challenges come. And I think the problem is we believe it until we actually have to live it. That's kind of harsh, but I feel like it's just where the rubber meets the road.
It's not, I don't think it's harsh. I think it's real. I think this is the tension that, you can say one thing, but living it out, outworking it, there's a tension there that we have to decide, like, we have to make some decisions. We have to have some conversations.
Right. So yesterday at our Mastery Session event here in Austin, very end of the day, by the way, to just give you a brief explanation of the event, we take a deep dive organizationally on the subject of alignment. And we're talking technical stuff, org chart stuff, really, really rich, good stuff.
Yeah, it's very business, almost like it's not, there's no worship, it's, it's very different.
Right. Well, and so at the beginning of the third session, the wrap-up session, I just happened to sprinkle in the kingdom commitment right at the beginning of the session, just because I believe it. I believe that, when we're talking about alignment, it has to be in play.
It's a cornerstone piece of it. So
We open up for Q&A at the end of the day, and I'm thinking I'm going to be getting questions on how do you design an org chart, and what does this role mean, and how does this role work with this one. In my mind, that's where this Q&A time was going to go, was all this practical stuff, and we did have some of that. But the first question out of the gate, when I asked for, what's the greatest challenge you think you've identified today, is we had a leader raise their hand, great man, raise his hand, he's newly married, and he just said, I have a question about the kingdom commitment. He's like, I believe it. Now, context, I had used the analogy when teaching of, the kingdom commitment sounds good until your pastor wants to add a service on Saturday night, or, and now all of a sudden you have to ask yourself, what's best for me or what's best for the church? You have to ask yourself those questions. And so he just was very honest, and he said, that feels like a struggle to me. That's my time with my wife. That's my protected time.
Yep.
Again, a reasonable argument, but he brought us just into that tension.
It's a real life example.
Yeah, and so I really appreciated his question. First of all, I reminded him that he's far more normal than he might even think, because that's maybe one of our most frequent questions.
Yeah.
I think we would get with leading second. But it just reminded me, we can't get past this, that after everything we had talked about yesterday, that was the first question.
Yep.
Was about, I want to be all in, but that sounds harsh. That sounds hard for me to prefer the church when it's going to bump up against protected time. So we're just here to kind of talk about it today, and maybe
we
offer some perspective.
We're kind of going off the cuff with this one, in terms of this question was asked yesterday, and honestly it really hasn't left me, because I feel like in making the kingdom commitment, this is one of the things that you have to like clearly define as a couple, as a family, if you're going to be able to work it out.
That's right.
And stay committed to it. And that takes some time and conversation. And it's not just a simple, it's not just a simple thing.
Yeah. So maybe let me give a little bit of context on how this actually works. Give a little bit of context. So the kingdom commitment, how it's supposed to work is when you're in a decision-making room, whatever room that happens to be, and a decision is being talked about as a team, the goal is to achieve a culture where when people are processing, they process through the lens of what's best for the house right now. Like, we want everyone, it's not that we can't debate. It's not that we can't discuss. It's not that we can't even express concerns. But we want to arrive at decisions through the filter of what's best for the house. What we don't want is for teams to sit down and discuss it through the lens of how it impacts them or their department. Because that's when you're discussing, to use the Saturday night example, pastor says, I feel like we need to add a Saturday night service. And that's where you start getting pushback from the team, but not because of the benefit or...
Not because it's actually a wrong thing.
Yeah, but people are even sometimes silently thinking to themselves, I do not want to do that.
Sure.
And I don't want to do it because... I like to do this on Saturday, and this would now keep me from doing that. So I'm going to say I'm against it. I'm going to bring up all these other concerns, but my real motive is how it impacts me. And I think that happens a lot on teams, as I think people sit there even silently, and they're oppositional or they're apprehensive or whatever, and they might throw up any number of reasons, but the truth is it's just rubbing against something personally.
Yeah.
So the goal of the kingdom commitment is that we don't do that. It's not that we don't debate. It's not that we don't discuss. In fact, I would argue that great teams do have robust discussion behind closed doors.
Yep.
To the point of disagreeing. Great teams know how to do that and do it well. But then when the decision shakes down, it had at some point to go through the lens of what's best for the house. And if you don't do that, what you've done is you've held the decision hostage to someone's bias.
Yep.
There's someone you're not wanting to offend in the group, so you make a decision around one person's preference or bias rather than what's best for the house. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, and so I guess maybe you could tell me what you think about this, but I feel like this starts with a conversation at home.
Yes.
And being on the same page about kingdom commitment.
Yep.
Whether your spouse is on staff or not, it might be like a slightly different conversation, but the conversation needs to be had that you're both on the same page with what kingdom commitment means and that you're both making it.
Lindsay and I joke a lot because I remind her that on our very first date, when I took her out on our first date, I remind her that I told her, I had really never told anybody, but I told her about my desire to want to travel and help churches. This is back when I was 20. And
I didn't know what that meant when I was 20. I just was I was on a date with a cute boy.
I remind her that she knew the whole time what was going to go on here.
You have remained true to your word.
The other thing that she reminds me of is that when I was a broke youth pastor and we went for dinner that night, she ordered lamb chops, which I could not afford. And she reminds me that she's very expensive.
I didn't know that you couldn't afford it, let's be honest. But I didn't do it on purpose.
You say.
I'm just saying I didn't do it on purpose. It just was who I am.
And you've been true.
And I've been true to that.
So, anyways, I guess neither of us have changed.
No.
Over the years.
We've been committed to who we are.
So, anyways, back to at home, joking aside, I actually think that's been an important piece for us. We had better conversations than that over the years, but we had to come to terms with the fact that this is actually how we're going to live our lives. This is actually how we're going to instruct our girls now.
Yeah.
Glow is 4 And when we were leaving on this trip, I've probably never said it to her like this, but she also has never seemed to notice when I leave as much as she did.
Yeah, this is the
this
first time
trip.
that she really, if like she was saying, I don't want you to leave. She had
Yeah.
tears in her eyes. She was sad that we were leaving.
And I inserted the language that I will continue to unpack with her. I said, thank you for sending me. Thank you for releasing me to go.
Yep.
And, the culture that we will build with her, and she will realize she unknowingly joined, is a family that we send each other and we release each other beyond personal preference. I mean, it really does start at home. Our girls would prefer that we not be here today.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely both would have preferred that, but I think if you were to ask Zane, I think she's thankful that we are here. And
Well, she's really getting it.
she's
right now.
bought into it.
Yeah.
Like she's a part of the conversation, and she's like we bring her into that conversation now about what we're planning and what God's doing in the
Right.
ministry. And she is 14, but she really is in.
Well, we brought her along for years. I remember it was last summer. I guess she would have been 13. She came with me on her trip to Florida, although I will say that one was all because I promised her one day and one day only at Disney World. A day which we rode every roller coaster
yeah.
across all 4 parks.
She's pretty proud that you guys did that.
She's pretty proud.
But I think that's part of it, though.
But my point is, before that was great, and that was the reason that she went. That was really all she cared about. But she had to sit in a couple days of meetings where she's on her iPad in the corner, and yeah, sure, she's probably doing, whatever school or game
Yeah.
on the iPad, but what she is seeing is she can see what we do. So now when I say I'm going somewhere, she knows what that looks like. She
Yeah.
knows that Dad is sitting with leaders and he's helping them and he's ministering to them. And so when we leave, she now is a part of the conversation of the sending, whereas obviously Glow, we're just going to have to start seeding that and building that. But I think the point is we have to lead our families in this, because
Yeah.
our families do have to play a part.
Well,
in the sending.
how you talk about church, how you talk about the commitments that you have made to your spouse and to your children is everything.
Right.
And it's not, it's choosing your words carefully, not to deceive, but to describe. So I'm not trying to deceive you by, pulling the wool over your eyes. I'm describing to you what God's placed in my heart. I'm describing to you the purpose that we have. I'm describing to you why we're doing what we're doing. And I feel like when you have those kinds of conversations, that's where the power lies, because if you can come to an agreement together on that commitment, then the Saturday night service pops up, and that was normally your family night. You're both on the same page for commitment, and you go, okay, we've got to readjust what we're doing here. This season requires us to change our family night to Wednesday nights, or whatever it is that you decide to come up with. But you have to start with an alignment in that commitment,
Right.
because then whatever seasons you're walking through, you're just making adjustments.
Yep. I think another way this comes up too is we have to build this commitment into our teams,
Yeah.
our departments, because any department is going to have a strategy or a picture of where their department is headed. I don't believe vision for a department is the right word, because I believe the vision of the house is the vision. I believe we should be working more in departmental strategies rather than departmental vision. That's probably a whole nother podcast right there. But, you're going to have a strategy. You're going to have a plan. You're going to have a desired outcome or what you'd like to see happen. And then your desires and your plan are going to bump up against another department's desires and plan. And I think we have to remember, you're all working toward the same vision, but your strategies and your plans are different, and they might require something of each other, or
Yeah.
they might bump up against each other. And when that happens, our teams actually need to respond with a kingdom commitment
Yep.
to each other, because our teams can get frustrated with, here's an example I love to use because I think it's just super real is, let's say the projector or the TV in the elementary kids' room or auditorium goes down,
Okay.
whose responsibility is it? Is it the children's ministry team or is it the production team's job? The answer, first of all, is that it's both.
Sure.
The last thing we want is to silo that decision off so some children's person, team member that doesn't know anything about tech is up there trying to fix tech.
Yep.
And then we also don't need the production team making decisions for that tech on their own without considering the needs of the children's team and what they
Right.
actually need in that room. So the technical answer is it's both. So then we end up bumping up against each other.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out budget. We have to figure out the plan. We have to figure out who's ordering. We have to figure out, you can't get that size screen or, whatever. And
Right.
And teams can fight
Yeah.
laterally
Yep.
over, and that's a small example, but I think it just happens all the time. It happens in events. It happens in
Yep.
in planning the calendar, and we just have to we have to build the commitment in our team that, first of all, we're all on the same page here, or we're working toward the same thing. That'd be a better
Yeah.
way to say it.
Yeah.
We're working toward the same thing. These are not our adversaries. We're actually here to serve each other.
Yeah.
So if we don't build the kingdom commitment into our teams, I think we will also fall short. Because you can get it, if you're the children's director in that example, you can get it right with the production director all day long, but what if your team members, what if your team leads and those underneath you don't get it?
Sure.
You're still going to have the infighting, going on and such.
Yeah.
How do you feel like, Lindsay, we lead Leading Second together? That looks different for both of us. And I know the last couple of years since having Glow and such, it's had you more at home. Although she's in school 5 days a week. We're
Starting this fall, yeah.
I
this
gave Lindsay a couple new projects recently.
And hey, I've been actually doing
You're back.
stuff. I'm back.
You're back.
I'm like back.
5 years later, you're back. But being on kind of the home and receiving end, it's had its challenges. So how have you navigated our family's our family's kingdom commitment on the home front?
I think a couple things are true. I think I have to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence of my responsibility in communicating to our girls, what we're doing, on trips that you're gone and it's hard. I have to be really careful how I'm communicating that to them. And I'm not saying that I've always gotten it right. I'm not saying I haven't had frustrating days, weeks, moments, but that's something that I am constantly trying to keep aware of, is how I'm portraying, our commitment to what we're doing, even in the times that I don't like what's happening. So I would prefer to be with you on the road doing ministry, but right now in this season, it has me home more with the girls, and that's my ministry. That's my job right now. That's the season that I'm in. And, so the desire to do something else could feel very strong. And how am I handling that? And I think that kind of brings up the point of seasons, that, I think sometimes when we're in a season, a good season or a bad season, we can feel like it's always going to be this way. And
that's a good point.
It's never always going to be this way.
Yeah.
It's never going to stay 100% good. It just isn't. It's never going to stay 100% bad. Yeah. Something changes on the church calendar and affects your day off, or it affects whatever. I think, finding a new solution to what you need is important, but also remember, sometimes you're in a season of stretch. Sometimes you're in a season of I'm uncomfortable, or I'm not doing anything of what I want to be doing right now, but this is a season. And what I'm doing is I'm sacrificing for the commitment that I made.
Yep.
And if you can keep that in your mind and keep that in front of you, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that it always feels good, but sacrifice doesn't often feel good. But then on the other side of it, when the season does change, I mean, I can tell you, I'm very proud of our girls. I'm very proud of how they release you, how they release us. I'm very proud of the ministry that we're building, and it's because of the fact that we all have made that commitment together and are walking that out. And it's not always easy, and it's not always fun, and I'm not always doing what I want to be doing. But if I could focus on the fact that, like, what I am doing is keeping my commitment to the kingdom, then it gives me the courage to keep doing what I said I would do.
So good. I think the last thing, at least on my mind, unless you have something else, the last thing that is on my mind at the moment is the idea that there's nuance to this conversation.
Oh, I mean, every single one of us has a different story. And we're speaking out of our example of travel and whatnot. And that's, probably more than likely not your world,
but, Yeah, but nights away during the week are. And, everybody's going to experience it differently. But nuance, because I think we don't want to just one-side this argument. I think we're trying to give you the first side, but not the only side.
Yeah.
And I think the other side of this is, I mean, quite frankly, there are moments where, you can bring your opinion, and it's good.
Yeah.
And there are moments where you do need your family to win out.
Yep.
And that's good. And there's moments where it's okay to go to your pastor and say, I'm not doing well right now, or something's really heavy right now. Things have accumulated. You may not know it, but I'm feeling it. We got to be fair that those are good moments, and we're not trying to say that your personal opinion or needs don't matter. What we're trying to say is that they're second.
Right. It's not that they don't exist or they don't matter.
The kingdom is first. The needs of the team are first. Personal needs are second. That's leading second. That is, leading second sounds great until you actually got to be second.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case we're making, is we got to get them in the right order. I think we have to take God at his word where he says, seek first the kingdom of God.
Yep.
And then all these things will be added unto you as well. I think we have to learn in increasing measure to trust him with all these things, because he's referring in that teaching, Jesus is referring to practical things, material needs.
Yeah.
And I do not faithfully see that in scripture, that it doesn't matter to him.
Yeah.
In fact, I think what I see more so is that he recognizes it does, but he's asking us to trust him with it.
Yeah.
And not try to seek self at every turn in the road on the ministry journey. Imagine if you were a part of a church team and the church was looking out for its interests and you were looking out for your interests all the time. Like, that was the chronic state. Right. Is that really going to be an effective team? Is that a team you want to be on?
Right.
What I would propose that's much better is that we lead from the second chair, and we seek what's best for the team, we seek what's best for the house, we seek what's best for the bigger picture, and then we trust that our pastors and the church and ultimately the Lord are going to look out for us.
Yep.
I have found that to be a far healthier posture. I think there's commitments on both sides.
Yep.
To that.
Yes.
But even when you might feel like, well, the church is asking a lot of me, or pastor's asking a lot of me, you can still trust Jesus, because Jesus is still faithful and good. And I think we have to see him as rewarder and provider. And we have to trust him with all these things. That is not easy. That's a pretty high bar, maybe, even in some moments. But I think that's the level of trust that Jesus is asking us to give him when it comes to ministry. And Ernie, do you agree with that?
I do. I also think this is why I believe all of this wholeheartedly, but I think the first thing that maybe we need to even say is that, like, this is why it's important to, like, really trust your pastor. And, like, you need to be with someone that God's aligned you to, and that you are willing to make these sacrifices. You believe that he hears from God, and someone that you can trust. So we can make these decisions because we know that our pastor is seeking God and he's hearing from God, and the things that he's doing are to build the church.
Yep.
And so, if we haven't had to go to him much, but like I remember when we were in the NICU with Glow, and it was right before Team Church, and you were basically just like, I can't do all of it. Like, I can't get ready for Team Church, be at the NICU. Like, I'm overwhelmed right now with, all of this. And he said, okay, this is what I need from you, and these are the things that I'll get covered. And it was like the stuff that absolutely no one else could do, you still needed to do. But like, he helped you, he released the pressure valve a little bit. And, so I'm just saying, like, who you're in a relationship with is just so important. Also, who's on your side that you can talk to about this. So I feel like sometimes, the season changes. We're maybe in a moment of frustration because it's not lining up with, I think, you get your schedule set and everything, and then something changes, right? And then you're like, now what are we supposed to do? And I think you can suffer in silence. Even if there's nothing that can be done, and you're in a season where you got to push through, who are you talking to about that?
Yep.
And what kind of advice are they giving you? Because if they're just, sitting there licking your wounds with you, maybe even, talking bad, or, that is not who you want. You need somebody who's going to be solution oriented.
Right.
They also have a kingdom commitment, so they're going to help you keep that commitment and find a solution, or they're going to be there supporting you while you walk out this sacrifice, while you walk out this commitment.
Very good.
And I know for me, it has definitely taken time, but I have friends that I can call that they know the commitments that I've made. They know my desire to keep those commitments, and they will give me a word in season that will keep me going.
Yep.
And I think of my friend Janelle. Literally, I could probably text her 5 words, and the woman would send me the most prophetic
she's so good.
text back.
She's so good.
That is just exactly like from Jesus to my heart.
Yep.
And it's exactly what I need to hear to keep going. And she doesn't try to talk me out of it. She doesn't try to, those guys are taking advantage of you, or you guys really need to slow down, or none of that. She keeps me in my commitments. And I just feel like who you have around you, you're not going to make it if you don't have somebody solid like that. But I will say that takes time. That takes putting yourself out there, talking to people, finding people that are doing the same thing you're doing, that have the same heart. That's one of the reasons that we have created this tribe, because we want you to connect with people that have the same heart, are making the same commitment. They want to stay in it. Like, we want you to find each other because you have to. Like, it relies on that.
That's so good. And I think we always feel a little helpless here, sending a podcast off to the editor and posting it. I wish we could be there to talk about every situation with you. What
struggle you're going through.
But I do know that the Lord is able to bring that right person into your life. I think that's very well said. The Lord is able to bring that right person into your life who can. And we all do need someone to walk with us in ministry. In fact, maybe that'd be an incredible action step for somebody out of this episode, is don't ask God to get you out of all the tensions. Maybe ask him for a person or a tribe to help see you through the tensions.
Yep.
And help you keep your commitments. Hey, I think we're going to leave it there for today. This has been the Kingdom Commitment. When working on our church team, I will place the interests of the church and team ahead of my own. Some of you ought to put that on your mirror, so to speak. Put that on your computer wallpaper, your phone wallpaper. Let's get it in our heart. Let's get it in our spirit. Until we believe it, until it's truly a conviction of our heart. It's the pillar, the foundation of a healthy, effective team, and I hope we've given you some handles to lead with that. Leading second, we love you. I love our Walk With Me community. I pray that this has helped walk with you a little bit.
We want
to
know what else you want us to talk about. I'm going to record a solo podcast coming up here.
Yeah, I think
I've never done it before.
Home with you today.
I know. I've never done it before. I'm a little nervous because you won't be there to keep me on track. So
I'm not going to say anything. And with that, we are out today. Leading second, we love you. Until next time, keep running strong for the kingdom.
Love
we
you
love you. God
guys.
bless.